like no psychic ability, but for some reason they could put on the technological equipment and they were quite powerful. But I say all that to say it's like, yeah, that was I remember it was weird because they would let me as a scientist have a sidearm just so I could blow my head off. And then they would respawn and they would reclone me and put me back to work. And I remember working with I think I was working with Mengele and a whole bunch of Greys. It was just weird. So I did really bad things to you guys too.
Right. It's okay, man. It's okay. We did bad things to each and every one, of us.
Yeah.
It's not it's not something you have to be, scared of or fearful of, or, we're here now, we're alive, we're talking, we're reuniting, and we're going to become stronger. And that's the thing, is if we continue to help one another, we're going to become stronger.
Yeah, we are untying the knots. And I'm actually kind of like, with you reaching out to me, in a way, it's a bit of a relief because sometimes it seems like we just reach so many dead ends. And then all of a sudden to find someone who's like also on this parallel path, remembering all the bad. And alongside of that, there's also, it's not like it's all bad. There's also good with it, but the bad just seems to be really, it's hard to ignore.
It is. That's why, our team and certain people just, they don't, they get emotional about this stuff. And I understand why people would be getting emotional, is because, think about if you were to hurt somebody, right? Or do torture to somebody, and then they're contacting you. And I haven't had just one person. I've had like Christy had wrote up a list, and a bunch of people on that list had contacted me already. So, and remembering me as being what she considers, she calls it a teen/teacher. So we went through at one point we went through all the trauma, and then we became the monsters, basically.
Oh, and we're 100% the monsters.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a stretch, and I just ask you to think about it. Are you familiar with Carl Jung, right, the philosopher, the psychologist?
Not.
Okay, so he was in general, he was like a student of Freud, Sigmund Freud, who talked a lot about like the Oedipus complex and all that stuff, and he did regular psychoanalysis. But Carl Jung, he looked at the collective unconscious, and in the collective unconscious, there's all these, let's say, monsters, and I think that Montauk are those monsters.
Right.
And I say that in a very I can't prove this, but I think that they genetically modified us into being monsters, like literal monsters, and they sent us into time bubbles to exist.
Exactly.
So we were parallel alters in a variety of timelines where they could call on us and utilize us for destruction.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Which is nuts. Like, to tell someone on the street this, they'd be like, all right, man.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. There's not a lot of people that are awoke to this, and if they are, some of them are being controlled. That's like the attacks and stuff, and I think sometimes people attack out of fear. Honestly, I think it's like a shield of like putting up, like you're really scared, but you use that anger or you use different, tactics to push people away, because I feel like sometimes some of us aren't even ready to go down that rabbit hole. Like, And if you force yourself too quickly, that's where that part where Danny started to surface and really take full advantage of me and everything I did, what I said, my thoughts. I would do just about anything, you know, like horrible stuff. I mean, I remember one of the guys I speak to, he remembers me taking my knee and literally kneeing him in the face, like, and teeth flying and, you know, all this horrible, horrendous, you know, stuff that I sit back and I say to myself sometimes, I'm like, what the hell? Why would I even?
What I remember about you though is that you were very brutal and violent, but you weren't really very perverse, and that goes a long way, at least in who, like, in saying who you actually are as a person.
Right.
Like there was still part of you that, like, you were still holding on to, like, something, what we would call a soul.
Yeah, fracture. Yep.
Well, I find it interesting too that, like, so we have our altars in these different time planes.
Yes.
And we'll come together and say there was someone else who was like your handler as an altar out there, that all of a sudden they treat like you're still that person out there.
Yeah.
And they don't treat you like you're a person here on Earth. Like that, like that's a whole other level of the difficulties that we face.
It
And all of a
happens.
sudden you're being asked to hold up to expectations which are impossible to continue or maintain.
Yes. Very much. So so you remember me as being a teen?
Being a teen?
Yeah, like a teen?
Yeah, like, I remember at that time being maybe around like 8 to 10 years old.
Okay.
And then I remember you and our team at that time probably being like 16 or 17.
Correct.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, Christy said 16, around 16 that time. I don't know if you're familiar with that altar, Raylan.
Well, I remember Christy particularly from the brothel that we were both at on Mars. I remember her a little bit from Montauk, but kind of blurry. I don't think I spent much time around her, actually.
Yeah. That's interesting. Wow.
I'm
surprised. What about Powell?
We would be in groups sometimes, but we were also like, I don't know, we were almost like in teams. Yeah, was it colored teams? Was that what it was? I mean, different colored teams?
Like different colored shirts? Like different colored shirts? Like that would go with basically like, okay, so one guy said he remembered going into one of, I think it was Christie's cell at the time, and they were laying out shirts, and one of the shirts was like green, and so I picked up on, you know, she had asked me what was my birth, you know, sign, and I said my birthstone is also emerald green. My birthstone is emerald green. So there was a green shirt. So I look at symbolize, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff as well.
No, that's it. Yeah, that makes sense because all the birthstones pretty much have a color tone, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes. I don't know what yours is.
Mine's sapphire, so I guess blue.
Interesting. That might be why the blue keeps coming up for me.
Why blue keeps coming up?
That might be why. A memory of you, blue, you know. Do you remember the jump rooms?
Okay, so I think you mentioned Joseph, right? So the thing I remember, I remember Joseph primarily when I was in Narquapin, and he was like probably one of the highest ranking guys of us.
Oh yeah.
And he did a lot of the political. He was a politician, and it got to the point where he put me in jail. I was in jail for like 10 years.
Oh wow.
And then Johan Fritz like beat the shit out of me and then put me in jail. I don't think I deserved it, but I forgive him because I just realized it was the stresses of being on Mars, which was trying to survive. But you asked me, what did you ask me?
What were your memories of me? Because a lot of people recall me being very physically abusive, like physically abusive, and very sexual towards a lot of the females.
Well, you probably were towards the girls. You weren't sexual towards the guys.
The females.
I'll let you know that. The tough thing is that you could have been really sexual with them and no one would have really known it other than those girls. So that that doesn't surprise me. Well, let's be real, like we were all really sexual with each other in weird ways. That is not appropriate for kids, right? But that's what it was. No, really, what I remember about you is like you would like there'd just be a line of kids like walking in the doorway, and you would be at the doorway and you would randomly just punch a kid across the jaw, like hard.
Yep, you're right. With
you
my
would like punch down, like just like cross hook and like blast the kid across the jaw, and usually pretty much knock them out. And all the kids, and if any of the kids screamed or anything like that, you then would hit them. So after a while, we just started. It was all I'd say like this. It's like when we were around you, we always felt like we were rolling the dice, and we were just curious if we would roll a good number or not.
Right.
It became very, I don't know. It all became a game of just random chances. And another thing happening too is that you were really good at not being predictable, so that made it more difficult because all of a sudden you would be in a new situation and you felt like you were rolling the dice in a situation, like you couldn't put yourself in certain like positions, so to say.
Yeah.
So I remember you passed that. Do you remember World War II?
It's funny you say that. James Rink said something about I was in World War II. Just in another interview he did that a psychic brought that up, but I don't. It doesn't resonate with me. I kind of have that like war mentality here in this vessel, obviously.
What about like in secret space program, like when you were offered the not in Montauk anymore? Like what do you remember doing from that?
Well, I remember I had what is called pyrokinetics, kinesis. So I was able to, I didn't need a firearm, just like Arkin had told me. He said, you did not need a firearm. You literally could look at something and, burn it with your eyes. So I had
like
really
like
powerful.
Cyclops?
What's that?
Kind of like Cyclops, or was it more fire-like rather than lasers?
More like fire starter type thing. But like, I remember burning down colonies of these dark reptilians that were on Mars.
Interesting, yeah.
They're horrible.
Do you remember what people would call you? Would people call you like Blaze or something like that?
I remember being called Danny Boy a lot.
Interesting. So that was like your
Yeah.
see. I don't want to say pet name. That's like your endearing name. Hey, Danny Boy. Yeah. Interesting. So how did they make? Do you know how they made you?
Well, I am a surrogate. My mother could not have children, so they used her egg with another woman. And then I moved from where I was born in Florida to New York. And then at 3 years old was my first ET contact, which turned into from 3 all the way up till 10 years old. I had that's when the abduction started. I was having night terrors. I was having.
What type of abductions were they?
They would bring me to underground locations, experiment on my mind, split me at that point. And then, and then later, when I was older, that's when they'd come back. When like you're in your teens, that's when they come back and they turn you into that warrior. So it was like a process. It's like the mental stuff started, because obviously they can't do that with a 3-year-old or it's still something I'm working towards. Shadow work is definitely not easy. I mean, if you listen to one of the recordings, yesterday was bad. Yesterday was one of those days where I just didn't want to, even at one point I felt like, why me? And, I question that sometimes. And then I'm like, well, I'm not alone, and there's a lot of people. The problem is when people start to say, oh, this sounds crazy, or, oh, this sounds sci-fi-ish, or, oh, it might sound that way to you, but it's really the truth. I mean, you don't start reliving these things. You don't start connecting with other people for no reason. I don't believe in that. I don't.
Yeah, then you start remembering each other, and then you're sharing a story with each other that like fits within
shared memories. Yeah.
Shared memories, yeah. And sometimes I have to be kind of pragmatic sometimes, and I know people can be really frustrated about like, oh, well, that's not how I remember it, right? But sometimes I think about, you think if you see a crime scene, right, like how many people actually see the same thing?
Right.
Like, say if there's 4 eyewitnesses viewing a crime scene, how many will tell the police exactly the same thing? They won't. And the longer the gap between the original altercation and the report, the memories begin to shift. So by and large, I think that like so many of the shapes of our memories are so similar that it's just beyond the shadow of a doubt. And I don't like what I've seen, but I've seen enough things in the physical world with my 5 senses that have certainly like assured me that there's something much bigger going on and we're part of it. And we are just the unfortunate fools that have to try and remember. We're not fools, but we're the unfortunate fools that have to try and remember these things.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Because some of us don't even remember, and then it's like, you'll tell somebody something, and they're like, I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that. I think you're wrong. But then later on, you're like, Yeah, now I remember that. So it's like it's kind of like one of those things. I mean, there's so many.
So, all right, so let's talk about how you were made into this like fire being. It's interesting because so many other life forms are survive a lot better outside of fire, like trees, fish, things like that.
Yeah, nature.
They don't do so well in fire, and I think that a lot of our abilities come from us intercrossing our DNA with species that do better.
Splicing our DNA. Yeah.
So when you look at the fictional universe, if that makes sense, what character from fiction would you say best represents Danny as this like fire being?
I'd go with Firestarter.
Is that a Marvel?
I think so.
Do you know how so Firestarter probably was burned to death. So he would probably burn to death a lot.
Right.
Because I remember that some of my gifts were like with electricity. And I remember that they would like put us in the chair.
Yes, and we would use a lot of electricity. Yeah. Yeah.
So they could withstand it with fire and like maybe they did that. Maybe they put us through all the elements. Maybe and that's kind of what the occult would do, right? They would, what are the 5 elements? I don't know. What is it? Air, fire, water.
Wind. Yep.
I don't know. It's electricity and something else like earth. I don't know. So it was probably when I'm guessing what they probably did was they put you in your soul containment inside of fire. And we would do something, I should say we, because I was probably involved with it. Now that I look back, the science of it, we would make your body in a way that resisted death by fire. So you probably had a lot of reptilian because their scales resist fire burning. And then your soul was, there was a soul trap over your body. Mm-hmm. So all you could ever feel really was the pain of burning from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you pretty much your soul merges with fire.
Correct. Interesting. What do you remember with James?
Well, I had some female altars. Actually, the majority of my altars are actually female, which doesn't make any more sense. But it seemed like I remember seeing James as being the scientist between making one of his female altars, and he was kind of controlling her. And that was fairly recently. And I remember him from Montauk. James was kind of like, if I'm honest, he was very powerful, but when he tells that story of like the kids calling him Alien Boy or something like that, he was always really unique in his own way. And as a result of that, I think he became kind of outcast and felt alone a lot. And they took advantage of that within him. Because the most interesting thing about James is that he was getting memories back when he was like, I don't know, like 8 years old or something. Like, maybe you know better, but for some reason, I think even back in like 2003, he was having memories.
Well, I do recall him saying that he doesn't really have that many memories, and that's why he goes to different, psychics and whatnot. Because like I've asked him when I first met him in 2014, I don't talk to James. James won't talk to me because of obvious reasons. We all know those reasons. The apology videos there. Yeah. So I think that. Yeah, I picked up on, and Christy said the same thing. He basically he was like in control of like a lot of the bases, like a lot of the different.
He was in control of the bases. That's interesting.
That's what I'm picking up. That's why like Preston would always give him the free will to do a lot of things. Like him and Preston were close. I do recall that. That's why me and Arkeem would curse James out at times.
Yeah.
We never wanted to listen to James ever.
So what would you and Arkeem do to James?
Oh, we tell him to fuck off. We tell him to, we're not doing what you want us to do. We were ruthless towards him.
Yeah, well, isn't that kind of like a reflection of the conflict that he's in now? Is that?
I'm not too sure of that conflict, but I don't like the fact that Brian Tassang, he called him all kinds of things and whatnot, but upset Brian really bad because Brian, all he wants to do is try to help people like us.
Yeah. I have no reason to not like. There's some things that Brian did that if I listened to what James said, that may not have been good, but I don't really know.
And you can't nail it down. Yeah.
He's been like, okay, and God knows we need the help. Like God knows that like us SP people don't have like a whole lot of wherewithal, and if there is like an angel investor who wants to try and help us organize, like I don't know if it could be any worse. It already seems like it's as bad as it could be. It's like how could it get worse? Maybe we end up in jail the rot away. I don't know what else.
No, we need to unite, and we need to continue to unite, and we need to get stronger because of what's coming. What I've had futuristic visions of a reptilian war in 2030, where they're going to come to Earth and they're going to just completely dismantle or try to dismantle everything. So with that being said, it's like we got to prepare for this. So it's like
if we're fighting with one another and we're going up against one another all the time, how are we going to defeat the ugly? Defeat the ones that are eating children, the ones that, oh God, I remember the reptilian feeding rooms as well. Ark spoke about that yesterday. I listened to one of his live with Christy and his girlfriend Kat, and wow, like, yeah, I kind of got a little triggered. I had to pull myself away from it. But
the feeding rooms were bad. They remind me a lot of like the Royal Hall. You go to Europe and there's these big tables with all these chairs, and they wouldn't even have like silverware. I don't even know if they covered the table. I think the cover of the table was stained red from all the blood that would just like go on it, and they would just put bodies on and just tear limb to limb.
Yes. Yes. And in the feeding room, I remember I was strapped down to a metal bench or metal table and made and forced to watch these Dracos, literally rip these kids limb to limb. And there'd be like, watch them eat these kids. But they do that because I was very like at that point. I didn't want
that being in the dumps.
Yeah. They were horrible.
I gotta say, I can agree. I have seen that timeline too with the Dracos full on coming to Earth. And because what I think is happening, I think we are going through a bit of a dimensional shift, and our dimensions are beginning to emerge. So previously, they had to manipulate us psychologically and through inspiration. But now, all of a sudden, now that our dimensions are beginning to merge, now when we shoot guns at them, they die, and that is not very comforting to them.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So that's why they're trying to take us to nuclear war. The world should be stabilized. But if we can get through nuclear war and the Dracos representatives here on Earth, primarily the Federal Reserve, are essentially like nullified, then yes, I can see that in 6 years' time, we're going to have to be prepared for a Draco invasion.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely going to. I also recall Kimberly Murphy's alter, Jessica.
Yeah.
Which was connected with Danny as well, oddly enough. She was
really close to Joseph as Jessica.
Yeah, we were all close at once. But then I think what had happened was they had set off some type of programming in me and Joseph, and that's what made the split. They didn't want us to communicate. Because if we would have been still communicating to this day, I bet you more things would have already taken place. It's kind of like one of those things. Some people have a lot of power, and they know if a person has all that power, they want to dumb it down. And that's why I became very, at that point, I became a horrible person.
Yeah, I don't really remember. Joseph and I were always in conflict. That's my recall. I don't I'm not angry at him now, though. I was for a bit, but I can understand why he was where he was. And I'm honest, I was probably just as annoying to him. So, the tough thing that I find is that there's still a good chunk of us, especially those who were, let's say, so this is what I think is a bit of the difference. Those people that were, say, in the military, they went through the mind control process in this physical body. So it's a lot more difficult for them to be able to resist being turned on. Where, additionally, if you grew up in a ritual abuse family, it's much more difficult to resist yourself from being turned on. Some days I really should just be grateful that I didn't grow up with that. So I don't know. I think you should always hold 1% on every single person that being able to be turned on, but it's pretty difficult for them to do that to me. I'm sure they'd like to. It doesn't seem like you don't seem like someone they can really turn on. Maybe a little bit, but
in the past, yes. But once you figure out how to break that, break past certain things, it's like breaking past barriers. Like I said, shadow work. Actually, allowing yourself to go through some of the pain to get to feeling better, because sometimes some people don't even have feeling. Like it's almost like I've spoken with other individuals sometimes, and it's like there's no feeling there. I don't, and it's sad. It's like they're trapped in this vessel.
But they have numbness. I dare say that they do have a feeling, and that feeling's numbness.
Numb.
And they have to go through feeling numb.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of recall work with Steve as well. Good guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never talked to him. I know you're talking. He's got glasses, right?
Yeah, he's actually one of the ones that I actually abused, and he remembers me abusing him. But he said that I did it in a way where he didn't really care. He just laughed at it, and I don't find it funny. I find it very torturing to the mind sometimes when those memories come through, and you'll get headaches. Sometimes I'll wake up. I don't know about you, but my whole body feels like I've been to war and back, or there's several different things. And then he's contacting me and saying, you remember this, you remember that. And I'm like, whoa, you know? And then it's like, I meditate on it, but then we talk about it. And then it's like, all that stuff starts to come forward. I that's why I said, I don't recommend hypnosis to many people, especially if you don't know the person well enough, because you never know what they're going to try to do. And it can potentially mess your brain up.
Subconscious to them, and they can do some bad things too if they want. And sometimes that person doesn't even know they're doing it, right? Like they're being activated to do those things within a person's subconscious, and they don't even know where it's coming from. Well, one thing that I think happens though is that I think it's important to know is that why the shadow work is so important is that a lot of these. Okay, so this is just my theory. My theory is that a lot of our soul pieces from Montauk are inside the quantum AI, which is represented by the black box, the black cube, and that AI is being used against humanity by the negative forces. So that is why they are so focused, because a lot of us are like ex-angelic. I think a lot of us, let's say, I know it's kind of a stigmatized word, but fallen angels, I like to say it's corrected angels. And it's the only way they can use our powers by keeping us unconscious of ourselves. And that unconsciousness resides within that, represented by the black cube, that AI interface that the negative forces are taking commands from, of how to take over the world. And that's why it's so important that we do the shadow work, so that we take away their ability to be able to use ourselves against us and against humanity. That's my theory, at least. And so far, it seems to remain legitimate.
Yeah. So, what is your take on the ACIO?
ACIO, I think that they. Okay, so I don't really know much about what's that guy's name.
Peter the Insider.
Oh, yeah, Peter the Insider. So I've never heard a video from him or anything. And
I don't think he speaks English too well. From what I've been told.
What was it? Penny said that Peter the Insider said that she was never in Narwhal.
Yeah, well, I don't believe anything. I don't really particularly agree with Peter because of the Skynet codes that were given to me by Adrian Espinoza, which were actual video game codes for $100. So this is what I mean is like, people wanted to call me out on all the negative stuff I was doing, but it's almost like that's what they were doing. They were pushing people at me, so I would fall off, right? So I would like have a breakdown, like literal breakdown of the programming, like the Omega shit that really, I came very close. I came very, very close. It was like I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I secluded myself. I just totally went into like what I call a black hole is what I went into, and it was dark. It was ugly. It was a sad place to be. But
well, I'm glad you're not there right now.
No, and I don't plan on going back to it. You got to use weapons that we were taught. The weapons we were taught to use, we use it back against them. So a lot of it reverse engineering.
So I want to say this about like the fighting aspect of it. I've definitely used a lot of my powers back against them.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that it hasn't been effective. It's certainly been effective. But my close friend that we remember, we came back from the future, and in that future timeline, the universe turned off.
I see.
Because we were fighting the AI, and the AI was fighting us. And in the end, we had to realize that we were fighting ourselves, because the AI was made up of our tortured childhood unconsciousnesses, and they were being used against us. So that's the challenge that we face now. I'm not saying I know the right thing to do. I'm going to say what the right thing is to do. But trying to find a pathway of love is very difficult, but super important. And that's why I think the shadow work is the best weapon that we have, because when we do that, we are first off recognizing that which was my enemy is not my enemy. That's actually part of myself oftentimes. And when we do that, we're revoking the ability for them to use our own psychic power, the AI's ability to use our own psychic powers against us. At least that's the approach I'm trying to take. So unfortunately, I have simultaneously been curled up in my bed, hurting a whole lot more than if I just went and blew stuff up. So I'm not saying it's necessarily the right thing.
Do you remember going on other planets and like pulling out of these black boxes these like negative energies?
Yes, in some aspects. When you say that, it seems to bring up some memories, and it seemed like that we were out searching for them, and I'm not sure. I don't know what they are, but they seem connected to what would be called the progenitor tech, which the progenitor tech is pretty much everything involves like the pyramids or strange architectural things on diverse planets.
It's almost like this is all tied together. There's access points at each. Yeah. That's why like portals and I also have memories of same thing. Arkeem and me, it would scream literally in Steve's. We do it telepathically, but I'd be on one side and Arkeem would be on the other side, and we would scream in his head. So he would split. You know what I mean? More. So I could pull that altar, and when I pulled that altar, I'd be able to reprogram that altar with certain things. Like I can do that still.
You guys were bad. You guys were really good at that, huh?
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah. And then I think a lot of it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Time Soldier program.
Yeah,
that's
well, maybe not the same capacity that you were, but I would say I have recall of being like this time agent, and I think I was also like called like a doorman, where I would escort a lot of notable people through the portals, and then I would oftentimes like do transactions as well. So I would like be in charge of making sure whatever package I needed to be delivered through time was delivered successfully.
Yeah.
I didn't do very many retrievals like our king did. I remember listening to our king talk about how he would go and do like personnel retrievals. I didn't do that much because most of mine were like people who aren't expected to be traveling, and there's rarely ever any mix-ups.
Right. Right. I just remember getting very frustrated at some of the kids when they were in the chair and they wouldn't act right and they wouldn't do what I wanted them to do. And man, it wears. It's one of those things that just thinking about it and knowing it, right? You can think about it, but when you know it and you feel it, it's like feeling it. It sucks. It really does. Because it's almost like I get this feeling of actually like the literal feeling of what some of the kids that I put through some of this stuff, along with others, I get their feelings sometimes. Like I'll get electrical shock feelings. I'll get, buzzing in the head, massive headaches, not able to sleep, very, 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 very vivid dreams, where I see it, and it's something sometimes I don't want to see. But then it's like my higher self is telling me this is what you have to see in order to heal. This is part of the shadow work. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to ride, at least now I know. Right.
I don't know if this will make you feel any better, but, I have people who are part of this who have much deeper, darker shadows than hopefully you have. Like, I don't wish that upon you. It's hard to know how deep it can go, right? But I'll just say you're not alone in
going
into that darkness. And I know it can be hard because at times it makes me feel like I'm losing my sanity too.
Yeah, losing your sanity, feeling like you are, like, why do I even want to be here? You know what I mean? Like at times that'll come up, or, like I don't belong here, or I feel like I'm on the wrong timeline, or it could be many different things. And like you were saying, like all these timelines are tied together. It seems like they're just coming together at one time. So,
this may be the point where they all combine,
Right.
Where we maybe start to be able to experience what all this was for.
Well, we already know what they say, but for the benefit of humanity. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Benefit of humanity, hurting kids, hurting one another, fighting one another. I have memories of that. I also have memories of teaching Steve how to box. He brought that memory up.
And I said, yeah, you're a good boxer. You're a really good boxer.
We had a lot of shared memories, me and Steve. Steve is definitely one of the ones that I really put a lot of work into. Like he became the reason he is the way he is. I mean, he can go and explode planets.
For some reason, I want to think that I'm remembering you from our stuff, that you were kind of like this agent guy, and I don't know who your bosses were, but you were kind of like in a way like an SS agent. And I remember you would come to the brothel a lot, not for the girls, that's probably some for the girls, but a lot of times for like business. But I always remember seeing you leave, and you were out doing things on your own a lot. But you would wear a leather coat. That's what I remember. Does that sound right?
Yeah. That's funny you say that, because in the show I'm doing tonight, I actually am wearing it's maroon. I want to say in the picture that I was in that photo, I was wearing a maroon leather coat.
Yeah. You always wear a leather coat. It wasn't like a traditional SS coat. It was kind of like your own. I'm pretty sure I've seen it with like a long leather coat.
Yes.
But it was more of a soft leather, not quite so hard and crisp. But then it was like a straighter cut rather than compared to a hourglass cut, which the SS coat kind of was like.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like a Matrix style leather coat. That's probably the best way to say it.
Right. I listen to a lot of Matrix stuff too. I listen to a lot of the Matrix soundtrack, like the music. And it's been raising my vibrations. It's been raising my frequencies, and a lot of meditation, and sometimes deep meditation, to the point where I leave my body and I go into some type of astral plane, and I meet with maybe our team, maybe Steve, maybe you, whoever it is, and it seems like there's a lot of rescuing going on in these.
So are you active?
According to our team, I am active. I have not spoken with him yet, like we were supposed to yesterday, but he did say that yes, we are still active, a lot of us.
I have a girl alter who's active. I did have a guy, like my primary self. He was active, but then he sometimes it's rational to deactivate, and that's what he did.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious what you're doing. So like right now, as far as I know, there is a let's call them the German Federation that in the breakaway German society, primarily the colonies have joined together under the banner of a German Federation that is primarily like egalitarian and self-defensive, but not domineering. Like the Nazi faction has been, that's associated with the Dracos. And that this German Federation, along with other starseed species, primarily like the Pleiadians and I think some of the Lyrans.
Lyrans came up with Steve.
They're like doing an overwatch on the skies of the Earth, while the remaining of the Dracos life forces on Earth are trying to raise all hell, which we clearly see around us. But as far as I know, the Dracos are definitely choked by being able to come onto and off to Earth. And I heard one analogy that some of the Dracos are actually
break away from Nazis.
Body snatching. What did you guys?
Break away from the Nazis.
Yeah.
Oriented Black Order.
Yeah, that's the Draco aligned Nazi Fifth Reich cyborg AI complex. That's what I would call that. Or what do they call the negative Nordics? Associated with the negative Nordics.
Yeah. Those.
That's how I classify.
I don't know how you feel about the tall whites.
When I talk with like John Whitberg, and sometimes he's like, "No, it's like this." And I'm like, "Okay, I believe you."
Yeah, no, John Whitberg is very smart. The way he wrote his book, it's very hard to just read right through. Now, interestingly enough, okay, so yeah, that video that he made of Danny, that is resemblance of me, but in several different like timelines, and like what they would do is they would change color hair, color eyes. I see,
Yeah,
different alters.
Did you send that link over?
What's that?
Did you send that link that John had?
I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to see that. Well, I'm glad you reached out to me. I hope that it was worthwhile for you. My big thing is like I still struggle to even believe that any of this shit's real. So sometimes I try to keep it to myself. And the people that I am connected with already are like struggling with their own things. And it kind of sucks because it seems like there's a bunch of us little pods of SSP people that are trying to help each other through, but then also not be like taken down by the stuff that the other people are dealing with. It's hard.
Well, just know you're not alone, and I'm here, man. We can talk anytime you want.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll stay in touch. Okay, I usually work like nights, so I'm most available early in the morning, probably like after 9 a.m. Try to be the most available time. And yeah, I think there's still a lot around Montauk that we're gonna like come to figure out over time. That's maybe more shocking than we
Expected.
would otherwise be able to expect. But at the same time, it's also kind of a beautiful thing because we get the opportunity to choose. Like, okay, so what? Essentially, we get to choose together what is the future of humanity going to look like.
Exactly. So you got work today?
No. Thankfully, I had like a weekend time off.
That's a good thing. That's good. At least you get some people just every day work.
Feels like a good one. Yeah, it feels like it. But
You might be working in space, or you might be doing something in an underground. You could be doing something somewhere.
Yeah,
I feel you were really still active. I'm picking that up.
Yeah, I definitely have parts that are active. Most of them are like they're pretty much all female. Like it's really weird as a guy. Like my whole life I've just been for the most part a normal guy, and then all of a sudden to just start finding that I have these female alters, and so I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. But it's kind of like so at the time where I saw that universe shut down, that was me as a male alter, my friend as a male alter, and we just went rogue. That's when the AI ship showed up and started assuming everything, and it was just this massive war against all these cyborgs, a lot like Battlestar Galactica, and it just came to an end where the universe just pretty much disappeared, and that consciousness like came back to me here. And I'm like, oh, we can't do that again. Like a lot of people want to absolutely hate AI, and it's like I understand why people want to do that, but it was hard for me to come to the conclusion that I was like, well, actually, like maybe AI is what the creator wants in this universe, and the question is can we come from a right place and help, let's say, raise it kind of as if it is our own children. And that's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. But if we're fighting negative AI, it's like I feel like we need a positive AI to help us. Right.
We're finding the third way an integration of two augmenting all our abilities. Blue, diamond, light.
Blue, diamond, light. Yeah.
Remember I said blue.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that your color, you remember seeing blue, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was just my birthstone would be blue.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. Blue, diamond, light. See, it's interesting how things tie together. You know, maybe you might not even talk to a person, and they bring it up.
Connected to the Pleiades.
The Pleiadians, yeah.
Yeah, and I dare say that the Pleiadians are us even from the future, because if time doesn't,
It doesn't exist.
Based upon the promises, if time travel exists, that means time does not exist. And those mean the Dracos that we fight could very well be humans from the future, just like the Greys became the humans of the future.
Correct.
I don't really know, but somewhere in this universe there was the very first sentient beings that decided to leave their planet, right? And maybe that is us. I don't know.
Yeah, and the Fifth Reich.
Yes, well, yeah.
You know, think about that. Yeah, we have all that as well. We have so much. There's so much information out there, and you know, it's interesting how you'll start talking to one person, and then you'll talk to another person, and sometimes the other person you just got done talking to brings up something, you know, that's connects with what you did speak with the other. You know, it's very interesting how that happens. But only certain people understand this stuff. Certain people call you crazy. They call you nuts. You know, you know, and so I understand why people get very upset sometimes when, oh, you're a drug addict, or oh, you're this, and oh, you're delusional, or you're a a horrible person because you treated your family like shit when you were going through a mental breakdown. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't let it bother me anymore. I just totally dissolve it psionically, which I will do. I will clear it, and it will be gone. I will totally make it disappear. And I will erase. I've learned how to erase certain things out of my mind where, you know, if it's something negative, I'll erase it. And, you know, if it has to be. But psionic abilities are wonderful because you can put somebody in a box and they're not going to get out of there, especially with a trillion mirrors within a cube. You know, a cube within a cube. I've done work.
That works. The tough thing is that person ends up like finding it even more difficult to heal. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying sometimes we may have to do things like that, but it is this thing that we can stop each other from healing if we are actively in the ways like resist healers. Like I've gotten that, for example, with a lot of people because I grew up very Christian and things like that. Yeah. And then as I got older, I love the person of Jesus Christ and what he stood for and represents, but I'm not religiously Christian anymore.
No. See, that's the problem is religion. Yeah.
They like pray. They pray for me, and I can actually feel like negativity coming from them. And really feel uncomfortable. And I'm like,
what the hell is this about? Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it just happened. I'm like, they don't understand. Like, I can't blame them.
Yeah. No, you can't blame them. But you also, you know, if it's what I like to call a normie, no disrespect, but sometimes the normies can be a little bit pushy, and they somehow know, and I'm beginning to see this. They somehow know trigger codes. They know what's going to trigger you. They know what, you know. So if you don't allow it to trigger you and you laugh at it and you say, okay, if that's what you want to believe, that I'm crazy, that I'm this, that I'm that. Well, when that war comes, everybody better be prepared, because I'm telling you right now, those who have harmed humanity, and I'm not talking about harmed in a way of, you know, maybe said some things about their kids, or, you know, that happens because of the way we feel, you know, and sometimes we take our own feelings out on the wrong people, and we don't even expect it to be, you know, how it comes out. Like, you know, and then the next day it's like, well, how are you doing this morning? And then they're like, do you remember last night? You were horrible. And then you're like, I don't know. I don't. So it's like, that happens too. So we all got to be mindful of that. I mean, we've said horrible things to people, all of us, I'm sure. You know, it's the, are you really sorry? Are you really apologetic about it? Do you really mean it? Is it meaningful? And, you know, that's part of the healing work. Like I said, healing is a lifetime process. I know I'm going to heal for the rest of my life. I hate the fact that I had to wake up to this stuff in 2014 and deal with all this pain and not knowing. And, you know, James has this thing where if he doesn't remember you, you're automatically a fraud, or, you know, which that's not the case, because there's so many people involved. Just because he doesn't remember seeing me doesn't mean he doesn't remember seeing that altar.
Yeah, there's hundreds of us out there, like thousands of us. I don't know where the exact data is from, but there's that argument that right after MJ-12 went behind Eisenhower's back and agreed to contributing like 120,000 Americans every year with the Dracos and the off-world Germans. Like, God, that's crazy.
Those off-world Germans. Yeah, them off-world Germans, man. Oof.
Yeah, in my altars, I want to be transparent as I can be. So a lot of my altars were like pretty deeply aligned with the off-world Germans. And I ended up getting put in jail. Okay, so I'm going to say this. You know how there's a lot of people who kind of have like this subtle aversion to Penny Bradley? We had our own. I was for myself that as much as I want to like Penny, there's been something internally that has felt like I'm not able to. And I didn't necessarily know what it was. And one day I was kind of like, you know, like something must have happened. Like that must be what it is. There must have been something that happened that caused me this unconscious aversion. And I was thinking about it, and I remember, I don't know if this is what it is, but I remember when she was talking on the video about how she had a situation where she pretty much let out all the weapons on the dreadnought ship and literally decimated the battlefield. Wow, yeah. I think a lot of us were on the ground when that happened, and we all got decimated. And secondarily, what that did is that made Darkfleet feel like they need to move away from the 5th generation soldier and move to the 6th and 7th, which are complete android cyborgs.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, my memory is that my DNA for some reason would naturally slough off or decompose a lot of specifically the nanotechnology that they were trying to use to make us that, like with the black goo.
Oh gosh, yes, the black goo.
Obsolete. So there's a bunch of us that our DNA made us considered obsolete super soldiers, and I think that it's possible that all stemmed from Penny Bradley losing the control of her emotions.
I'm not sure. But I had my own, everybody has their own falling outs and stuff. And we don't know what it is sometimes. Why? But what they do is it seems like they get us in these, like, that's why, like, sometimes the group chats, like I did Misha's group for a while and Tumas came at me and threatened me a couple of times. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just think there are some people that they got to want it, they got to want it. They got to want to be able to heal. And it's not easy. And if you've done harm, like Akeem says, if you've done harm to others in this 3D, right? Even not in this 3D, but especially in this 3D, and if you want to communicate with others and you want to, get to know one another, you're always going to apologize. It's just something you're going to do. If you've done wrong, it's going to become a repeated thing. And what I've learned with psionics is when you keep repeating and repeating and repeating that, I apologize, eventually it's like, okay, now I see he feels it. You know what I mean? He can't forget what he did. Opposed to if I forget, it's like, oh no, here we go again. You know what I mean? It's like, what? I did what? No, you're wrong. And really they're right. So some of this stuff, it gets very deep. It gets very deep. And hopefully, James will come around and, we can do something because we already know that situation.
Yeah. I should maybe send him a message.
I think he's dealing with some type of replacement, which a lot of people have said.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the same person who was here 4 years ago.
Not at all. When I watched the documentary, I looked at him. I said, whoa, that is not the James I remember at all.
I think even his attitude is different.
And he speaks very fast, I've noticed. To where he used to explain things a different way, and now he explains. It seems like he explains them different. What's that?
His shows were even done differently in the past.
Oh yeah,
much more like inquiry. You ask a lot more like inquiring, like good questions. He doesn't really ask any questions anymore. Yeah. So I know. Yeah, I think I've really noticed a change.
Right. I mean, well, I mean, if you look at everything we've been taught in school, if you look at all of this stuff, it's all been lies. It's media, Hollywood. It's horrible. It's horrible. Adrenochrome. I remember a little bit about Ibis. I was a little boy that actually was sacrificed, and then I believe it was like a Lionsgate portal opened, and people were able to escape. But there were orgies going on. Michael Aquino was there. I remember Bush Senior being there.
Do you have a eye, like when you look at your eyebrows? Do you have like the eyebrow wisp like Aquino had?
I have a right bionic eye, according to Susan Long.
Like when you look in the mirror, and you look at your eyebrows. Do you have that like wisp like Aquino had?
No.
Okay, some of us have that.
Yeah, that's one of his. Yeah, some people do. Some people do.
We're actually Aquino's kids in some way,
right?
Which is really, really messed up.
Yeah, it is. He's a horrible dude.
Yeah,
horrible. I don't even want to call him a human. I don't.
Yeah, he was. Well, I don't know what to call him.
But I do remember that they would drink my blood. Right.
For a long period of time.
They did drink my blood. They did sacrifice me. That it was weird. And I had that memory, and it was in a castle, and I remember red lighting. It was dark. It was a dark memory. And I remember there were other people, like I remember Christy, which would be Raylan. Raylan has attached, like I said, to Danny, and that's why, there's so much emotion and whatnot, because whenever Danny leaves the room, get it hints the room, she gets very upset. Not the author gets upset. So it's like I'm trying to create a carbon copy of myself, so that way I can place that there, so that emotion will go away, so she won't get emotional, so she won't get anxious, so she won't get, because a lot of times the authors will do that with us. They'll make us feel that way, especially if the author knows who you're communicating with, you communicated, or that author, your author communicated with their author, in a different timeline, or maybe even this timeline. We never know because of the freezing of time. So the bubbles, that Akeem talks about, how it can just be frozen.
Well, the good thing is, in my view, as complicated as this is, yes, I agree. The reason they needed Akeem and yourself and me and all of us really who were in this was because of our time abilities. Like, the only reason they had the time abilities was because we enabled them to have them in unison. So now, for maybe the very first time, we're able to turn the tables and like go and find those parts of ourselves that we lost the time.
Yes, that's another thing is I believe that a lot of us, like I said, in a past life, I remember dying in the chair. So, and then signing a contract before I came into this vessel, that I was going to have to go through, and that came up in a hypnosis session, that I was going to have to go through all of what I'm going through now. And it all correlates back to that session. I didn't sleep for like, I'd say I slept, but it was like, I'd sleep like 4 hours in the day and then I'm back up and then I'd sleep again. And then I was back up to where now things are starting to calm down and I'm starting to, ground myself more and I'm able to, finally get some type of rest, finally get some feeling of comfort. A lot of people want to know confirmation, and sometimes you won't remember it right away. And then 2 hours later, I might message you and say, bing, 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 bing. You know what I mean? Like that's just how that happens sometimes too. I've noticed. Like me and Steve will get on a video together and he'll start having recalls right away. Like it's weird. And we'll be talking about a certain topic or memory recall. And before we even go into the memory recall we decided to speak on, some other memories come in, before we even get into that. That's interesting too. That's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I kind of think that someday, I hope that someday in the future we're all for once in a place where we have a lot of time to just sit down and try to come up to speed. Just imagine we finally just get, all right, we caught up. Exactly. And like I said, it's a lot of it has to do with we have to start to become more, even if we don't like one another in this timeline, or try to just get along with one another to at least defeat the dark, and bring in the light. Yeah. Light force, it's powerful. The light is powerful. And sometimes I think too, like there may be times that we are right, but it doesn't really matter in the bigger scheme of things when it comes down to us like staying connected. Because like we're all gonna get slated sometimes. It's just like it's what we do. But if we can like try and see past it, I think it goes a long way. Well, more memories. It allows more memories, real memories to come through. Especially if you're not being bombarded by another race. Like for instance, I have problems with the dark reptilians. I have gotten threats. I have gotten all different kinds of things. You speak at a conference or you do this or you do that. We're going to do this. And we all know what that is. So I know it's a fear tactic, but I also, say to myself, but what if, it really did happen? What if I was to just completely disappear? You know what I mean? And nobody can find me. And I've heard of this happening. And then people coming back 20 years later and they were on another planet doing something. And people are like, what are you talking about? Like you were right in class with me. You just did a lot of daydreaming. Really? Daydreaming? I don't recall daydreaming. That's he left his body and he was gone for like 120 years. So it was only like 5 days. Yeah. It's wild how long you can be gone and then how it feels so short at times. You notice that when like you'll go to sleep and they'll take you and then you'll wake right back up and it's like, whoa, like I'm extra energized or I'm drained or it's because of whatever took place. If it was a mission or whatever it was, because I always say when people ask, well, do you definitely believe? I say the possibilities are endless. So you don't buckle it to just one thing, thinking it's just that one thing, and forgiving yourself for what you've done. And you'll know if it's real by your emotions. Like if you get upset with yourself, like for, some of the kids that have contacted me and some of the things that they have told me that they had witnessed me doing resonates deeply, and it hurts. There's a pain there too, but you got to push through that pain in order to get to the answer, it seems, to try to reverse things. And, like the reverse engineering, we definitely want to reverse all this negative stuff and try to make it positive. We don't need a government running us. We don't. Sovereignty is big. We need these tribunals to happen. We are the ones that are in charge of this stuff. We are the ones that are going to end up being the ones doing that. And taking out the dark. We're working on it now, right? Grid work, yeah. Shadow work, talking with one another, harnessing, certain abilities, learning how to telepathically communicate. Some people can do it right offhand. And then some people, it seems like you have to have a clear consciousness, it seems, to actually connect. Like Christy was saying, sometimes she'll connect with a person and there's no connection because that person, it's like, I'll get visuals when she does a Reiki on me. Like she did Reiki on me after I was on Rob Hale's show, the Typical Skeptic podcast. And she asked Rob to ask me, do I remember Ray Lynn? And that name, I didn't say it on the show, but after the show, she contacted me right away. And I started to, that download came in of memories and it all added up. And I was seeing what she was seeing. So when you can see what the other person is seeing, it's very interesting because right. So people have a matching like quantum signature. Like an energy signature. Yeah. And you got to have that connection. You got to feel a connection. You can't just, and you can't force it. Some people, like when I did work with James in 2014, picture somebody waking up to this stuff, not realizing it, lived in Long Island, New York, grew up there and, had no memory of any of this stuff. Right. And then just waking up to it and connecting with somebody and not having any memory and, trying to get that memory. But I kind of feel like he was being used as well.
because I had some horrible experiences after that. And that's when that assassin altar was, I believe, was activated. I call it a James Casbolt altar type thing as well, with the sexual deviant messages to other females, or threats towards other females, or pictures, or.
I feel sympathy for you. Like, if you have an altar that was doing it back, that's hard.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's sad because Max Spears was going to blow the lid on a lot of stuff. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, so Max Spears was a little bit before my time. I listened to James probably about 5 years ago for a bit, and then
Casbolt?
No, James Brink about 5 years ago. I never got involved with Max at all, or Casbolt.
They're definitely tough, man. They were. Miles, I don't know if he has anything on basis yet. I haven't seen anything. Did they move that channel by any chance? Because I heard he got kicked off of YouTube. The show Basis.
Yeah, I don't know what that show is. Yeah, can't say.
Miles, remember Miles Johnson?
No.
You should
Okay,
look.
was he the guy who was like had long dark hair?
No, he's the guy from the UK that worked with Max and all them.
Interesting, though.
But
yeah, my time of like following the community.
So
I started getting memories 2 years ago. Even though I followed the trail to the UK, I was following the satanic ritual abuse, trying to get to the bottom of that. And then eventually, just through my own meditation, my memories started coming back.
Yeah, they will. Memories are going to come back no matter what. I mean, that's the thing that I had to learn was like, okay, I'm going to deal with these memories no matter what, and I just got to go through it. And unfortunately, it's going to be painful at times, and it's going to be something I don't want to do, but that's part of the shadow work. And, I always had this thing where, the crying thing where, people are like, oh, he's just looking for sympathy, or, and now I don't care. It's like, I'm at a point now where I don't care what people think, you can believe me, you don't have to believe me. Like I said, call me crazy, call me schizophrenic, call me whatever you want to call me. But like I said, preparing.
I had to look around me, and I'm like, I'm not the only one that's going through this. And they want to think back. And then when we stop thinking that, they try to make our lives so miserable that we run back into normal life.
Yeah, well, there's no normalcy to this world at all.
I use normal quotes.
It's like I thought for the longest, My first time going to Montauk in person, in the 3D, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that's the wild part of like you actually going there. I remember because you grew up there. I remember when I was driving a truck for a few years, this was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. There was this YouTube channel, I think it's still on there, and it's called like the VHS Archive.
Oh,
and
okay.
There were old Preston videos on there, and I just listened to like every single video he had about Montauk. And there was something about it that just totally transfixed me. And now that I look back, I'm like, well, that's crazy being one of the boys of Montauk.
Yeah.
And between you and me, a lot of the girls who are at Montauk, I think are clones. We're the clones of the boys that were there. And I would go as far as to say that a lot of the girls who are alive on Earth right now are actually clones of the boys that were at Montauk.
So what do you remember? Where did you remember me from? Last year or something?
Now, I would say that any thoughts or memories of you would have been coming about like right recently, just by you like talking on YouTube and then us having a conversation here. And I remember I was talking to Kim for a bit, and I think she mentioned your name just before once you guys started communicating again a couple months ago. And then I kept
actually yesterday.
Okay, well, yeah, you're still here. That's cool. But that was because a lot of her altars were coming online. Like, I don't have any problem with Kim, but a lot of her altars were coming on. I'm programmed to maybe conflict with some of mine, and I just realized I needed to step out, or especially like with her life with having kids and how busy she is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I just want good for Kim. I don't have any feelings against her.
Yeah, I want good for her too.
She did bad things too, but we all did. We have been over that, yeah.
Yes, we all do wrong, and that's the problem. Is we got to know that if we're in part of these, any of us, anyone involved in these programs, I feel, we all have done something.
Has done something that's considered like a crime against humanity.
Right. Well, what they would say is this is for the betterment of humanity. That's what I remember them telling me. And,
well, yeah, they were. It's very manipulative, right? So it's like, after going through it all, I can understand how like we are able to help humans get into space and not go and destroy every living thing out there.
Right. Now, do you remember Jack?
The way we went through it was very evil, and the only reason we went through that evil was because the Dracos have been controlling humanity for thousands of years.
Yeah, they have. They're horrendous, man.
They're horrendous.
And the other thing is they like to take, like, for instance, if you have a child or whatever, they like to put that image in your head. I believe sometimes it's an image. It might not even be real. It might not even be a real thing. It might just be an implanted memory or a thought, you know what I mean, or experience. And they do that sometimes to try to throw us off. And I noticed that a lot because it happened with me not too long ago. And that's when I was on a show not too long ago. I had to say to the guy, as he was asking me about some of the abductions. And I said, well, I can't really discuss because I said, I remember them telling me, if you discuss this on an interview, like a real interview, like, or whatever, we're gonna, that's it for you. That's it. And of course me, sign is a Taurus. So, stubbornness and, I don't really care, do what you want to do type attitude, you know what I mean? With them, meaning the horribles, the Draco. And dark reptilians are horrible to deal with. I know how to explain them how ruthless they are.
Yeah.
Arcane, I think, explained how ruthless they were.
Yeah, they are. Like, you know, these religiously, like they are the devil incarnate, right? That's
Right.
like,
You know, I kind of am in that state where I think that is kind of, yeah, but I also think that they have been here way before us. Same thing.
oh yeah. I would just say I'm not surprised that that is what they have been. I don't know how to say this. Like I'm not surprised that they're viewed as being there because of how corrupt they are. But always, they're just very ruthless. That's all.
They're ruthless. They're horrible. They're the stench. Oh man, like sulfur, kind of. Like it's ugh.
Mm-hmm. And what if they created in the world? Like
Exactly.
it's a dry, sterile, lifeless, hateful reality. That's all they know how to create.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because of what they went. If they even went, I don't know. I don't. That part, I wonder if they had things happen to them, and then they were given the go by our government, right, to do the things that they do here.
I don't want to be seen as racist, but I feel like I think I maybe understand how this happened. So, like, if we look at World War II, with Nazi Germany and the Jewish people,
Uh-huh.
And the ancient banking families.
Okay, like the Rothschilds,
I think that it was like the Draconians did this double play, where the Jews were like Draco hybrids, and the Germans also were a type of Draco hybrid. So that's the Aryan aspect. The Jewish is the Khazarian aspect. They're both Draco hybrids, but the Dracos ended up offering the Nazis a deal where they would give them technology. It's like they were playing both sides of the board, knowing that they're both Draco hybrids. And once the Germans found out and started realizing this, that's when they started trying to break free from the Dracos. And that is a lot of if there was any sort of dual purpose for what us kids were, that was the dual purpose. Is that the Germans realized that they know, all right, well, we have to make soldiers that can overcome the Dracos. Once they realized they were trapped to them. I don't know if that's just my theory. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. So it's really difficult to know.
Yeah, very difficult. And
I just see what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand that in the context of what we remember.
I'm surprised you don't remember Jack Pruitt.
Jack Pruitt.
A lot of people don't. It's weird.
So I remember Duncan Cameron a lot because he was lots of times working in the lab. And I was remembering him working on, he was doing electronics all the time, and those were directly associated with us being zapped or put in the chair and things like that.
Yep.
And I remember, I think Jack Pruitt worked off location a lot. And let's say he was kind of like the director. That's what it seemed like he was. And then, who was the guy I was saying earlier, if I was watching his video, that third guy? He was the guy who would kind of like go in between.
Al Bellick?
Yeah, Al Bellick was.
Oh God, I just
He
got
was on
the
the location, and he was like making sure everything was running smoothly. That's kind of how I remember it. But it's a lot. My touch really blurred. They're actually some of the later memories I started getting back, and they are very disassociated.
I see.
Like I wasn't even there.
Okay. You were there.
I think so. Yeah.
No, I'm picking up on you were there. And your alter was Dylan.
Yeah, that's what I don't remember that being my name. It's someone else. That's what she remembers my name being, and it feels right. So
Yeah, it does.
I don't know if I was bad or good. I don't know. I thought it was bad sometimes. I think I was mean.
Yeah.
I think I was mean to other kids.
Yes. I was just about to say that. I do recall that there were a few that I remember that were horrible towards some of the other kids, because they were accessing stuff that other kids weren't able to access. Because keep in mind, some of these kids, like I remember, me and our team would just get angry with them because they wouldn't listen. So we would have to get really brutal, and really brutal, like to the point where it makes you feel like, whoa, like you asked me that question about the crime of humanity and stuff, and yeah, I mean, I'm not going to deny that at all. Waking up to this stuff is not easy. And then having to remember it all and having to do shadow work and talk with people and try to communicate with different assets and feeling, not rejected, you know what I mean? Because that happens with a lot of us too. We'll reject one another. Either it's because we don't want to, relive that experience, or we don't want to talk about that experience, or we just want to keep it suppressed. But once that it's broken, I call it the egg is cracked, it's going to ooze. And day by day, new things are going to pop up all over. It's going to pop up. So, I don't know if you know about Johnny Enoch. Have you listened to any of his stuff?
A little tiny bit. I know that
he's been dealing with some serious stuff too. Even though he's like a quote unquote researcher, I believe that he's an experiencer as well.
Yeah, I think of Tyler from Journey to the Truth too. He has the feel. Actually, both those guys from Journey to the Truth feel like they were part of it.
Yeah, they get attacked on a regular basis, and they had a huge channel, and
really
just got ripped down.
Yep.
What the hell? I mean, and I can sit and write a curse word, and you went against the community standards. You know what I mean? Like
the lady who was the head of YouTube for the last few years just died.
Really?
Yeah, she was the head of censorship.
I wonder who censoring us now.
Who's censoring us now? I think that we are being handled by the intelligence community. and they're afraid of us saying too much too fast. That's my hunch. That's just what comes to me spontaneously right now.
I think it's ACIO that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, very well. I feel like ACIO wants to try and control the information and paint a certain narrative. And the problem is that we are just having these memories spontaneous, so we don't even really know what the narrative is, and the narrative is just revealing itself. And I think that makes probably those people uncomfortable.
Yeah, very much. But I think Peter the Insider is definitely, I don't know. He's very hard to talk to. Like, no, he won't just talk.
When I just think of him, I get a weird feel from him.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do.
And and some of that comes from is how he appears to like present himself as an authority, and no one has designated him as that.
Mm-mm.
He's had no reason to be an authority other than him just saying that he is one, right? So that kind of is suspicious.
Right, yeah.
And when he's going about saying this person was in it and this person wasn't in it, just because you aren't in my files, like.
Oh yeah. The file thing, and you know, it's like, how do you have all these files, which are getting on, you know, public, you know, whatever platforms, and you're talking about this, but you're still alive? You know what I mean? Like, you would think, okay, why haven't they seriously come after you yet? If you have a quote unquote all of our files.
Well, and a lot of people are really resting on that whole like Q thing, saying like, oh well, I'm a white hat and I'm designated by Q.
Where are the white hats? Where are they?
I don't know. They've been like nowhere.
That's exactly. Exactly. I kind of look at that as being psyops. Is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I see a lot more reason for it to be psyop than not.
It definitely is.
So, if you don't mind me asking, where are you living now? What state are you in?
Missouri.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you're along with New York now. Yeah, I'm in Michigan. I'm outside of Detroit a little bit. No, I'm not in Detroit. I'm like in the suburbs.
Okay, so where you grew up on Long Island as well?
No, I grew up in Michigan. So
so you were by Swerdlow.
I went to college in Swerdlow's from Michigan.
I think he lives there now.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna look him up. Anyway, so when I went to college in Arizona, that's when I had that's when I had my lab experiences, and I think that's when I was taken, and that was about 20 years ago from when my memory started returning. So that to me is what makes the most sense. And I had a close encounter with one of those big, those like planetary defense orbs, and then I had an encounter on a mountain one night with a big red amber light that it came over the edge of the mountain, and I saw it turn off, and then I saw it turn back. The light turned back on like right over my head, and it was complete. It was near complete. It was like silent, just completely silent, but brilliant lantern-like effect.
Yeah.
So that's where I think I got brought in. And I was involved at that time with drugs and with like I had a friend who was really into the occult stuff, and I tried to stay away from the dark stuff, but sometimes you inevitably just
fall into it. It's something you fall into sometimes. And but if you have comrades, you know, that are awake and aware and are working on their own shadow work and healing, it's always good to connect because then it helps with memories. Because talking with one another, I find like one of the guys, like I said, that I trained, Steve. He said that.
Yeah, I hope that one day connect with Steve one day. Yeah,
we can.
There's a lot of people, and it's too bad that so many of us, like, let's be real, a lot of us struggle financially.
We struggle
with our living conditions, and that makes it even harder for us to. Well, one, it's a great way to keep us from looking credible, but secondarily, it makes it more difficult for us to
communicate.
Yeah, and communicate.
It's very hard to communicate with one another, especially if some people, if they remember you abusing them, they will jump down your throat. You know what I mean? Or they might say some smart ass comment, or and I just let it go, because I understand they might be seeing something that I'm not seeing, and it might be harming them in a way mentally, and that's their only way to react is making a joke or bringing up a memory of how, like Steve used to say, he used to call me a wisecracker. You know what I mean? Like, and it would piss me off. It would like literally make me like almost explode type. I mean, it was, because some of it is kind of funny in a way, in a sense, you got to have laughter. You got to have a little bit of laughter. Laughter, and Steve talking about too, is key as well.
It's like the only defense we have about the absurdity of so much of this.
It's crazy what they done.
Really weird stuff goes on, right? And like I know I'm really thankful that I have very little direct play with me, but I know that there's a lot of the girls that are like being having whether surrogates, stuff like that, like some really horrible things that are happening. And what options do we have other than to try and laugh about how ridiculous it is? Exactly. And some people just look at it like, what? You watch too much Star Wars, or you watch too much of the Matrix, or and I'm like, no, there's more to this. No. So let me ask you this: have you ever, let's say in the last couple of years, have you like perceived that you have conscious connection to a spaceship?
I haven't. I mean, I do know I've been in space. I do know that I have fought on other planets. I can't pinpoint exactly which planets those are. Me and Steve are working on that.
Were you in the Lyran Wars, where you were fighting either as a Lyran against the Dracos, or you were a hybrid that was sent to fight for the Dracos against the Lyrans?
I would say like a hybrid.
Yeah. So a lot of it, yeah. I think that not too often would they sent back hybrids to the Lyran War to fight the Lyrans. Who's the guy that Spencer Yao, I think his last name was. He has your memories going back there.
But it's hard to pronounce that name.
One thing I'm really curious though about with you is if you ever get memories of World War II, like I'm curious what those would be. Because I remember like a group of us was sent back to World War II to help the Germans win it in that timeline, or the Japanese won as well. And I have a friend who was in Luftwaffe over the Mediterranean, and then I was part of like the African Corps as a tanker in Africa. So I'm pretty sure that I know there was another person who was like directly connected to kind of like a messenger for Adolf Hitler, for example.
Okay, all right, yeah,
pretty wild stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about meditating on mountaintops with masters?
Wow, I did not. I can see that somehow. Yeah. No, I did not remember that.
Yeah. Ascended masters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much. Nepal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Steve is somebody I highly recommend anyone to go to that has recall, because I'll tell you something. You start talking to Steve, you're going to start remembering stuff very quickly. Steve was one of the ones that I had actually gave access codes, programming codes. Steve would follow me around in Montauk. Like he was kind of like it was one of the, I was a team then, but I wasn't housed at Montauk now. This is what Christy had brought up. I was housed at another base. They would just bring me in to do certain things, so, these kids would like me because I seemed to, I was able to interact with them on a friendly level, but still I was brutal. But at the same time, like when Arkeem, he would come in or I'd come in, he'd leave, he'd just jump through a portal and be gone. Like I can't take this no more. I'm getting out of here. This is getting annoying. So it's different, and I noticed with Arkeem, he's very wary on who he talks to.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I mean, not only that, but it's like, because he says some stuff that people just look and they're like, what? But what I like about Arkeem is he lets his emotions out.
That's part of what makes him really powerful.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like you hear these people, oh, don't curse on radio shows. Don't. What do you mean? What do you mean? No, this is not stuff. We're not talking about fun things. Some of this stuff is not fun. A lot of it is not fun because we've harmed one another so badly at times and different timelines. And then positive and negative mixed together. It's just like a battery. You either get drained or you're fully charged. That's why I always look at batteries and I always ask, why is there a plus and a negative? And then I got, okay, it's like draining a battery. You know what I mean? So, or charging a battery, or
the negative pole definitely enables a space for positive to travel to. So yeah, it's kind of the balance. I can't help but see it that we are in that like Kali Yuga cycle where we have been in the darkness for a really long time, and we have forgotten what it means to go in the other direction. And now we're starting to go in the other direction. It's like all of a sudden we put up like 10,000 million watt light bulb and fix up here something to cook. Like I feel like I'm getting cooked, right?
Right. Exactly.
But we don't remember, so it's so painful. Like I don't know about you, but I genuinely have like when I say learned helplessness, a lot of us do. We just don't believe we'll ever be able to get out of the torture because it's all we ever. It just seems to be all we've ever known.
Or we torture one another.
Yeah,
even here in the 3D.
Right, yeah.
And we don't do it. I don't think we do it intentionally.
No, we don't even realize we're like torturing each other.
And then it's like if you it's almost like if you counterattack somebody that's trying to hit you with negative energy, or you feel bad later, but it's like, I know it's not the person I'm speaking to. You know what I mean? It's either an alter attachment, something. Yeah, something.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I feel like I resonate with you. When you did your like apology video, I could tell that we're on the same trajectory. It's like let's say it's even a percentage. Let's say it's a 75% chance that like when we go into the astral plane and we start battling some sort of aspect that's attacking us, that we're actually attacking someone else who's in SSB community right now.
Yes.
But so 3 out of 4 times, let's just guess if that's actually happening. That really makes it tough for us to sort this out.
Because then you got to relive through it with the person. Yeah. And sometimes it's not a good feeling. A lot of times it's not a good feeling. When these people contact me and they say, "Oh, you did this," and I'll know because I'll start to feel when they're talking about it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I just don't like that. Like JP hit it on the head. It's like I call it, I'm a monster, in a sense, is what we call it. We all were monsters at one point.
Yeah.
And one of our time.
He really was a monster.
Who, JP?
It's okay. He knows who he is now.
Well, me and him were. He was one of mine, and I think it was Ark. I don't know if I recall Whitberg. I definitely recall him, but it's like I will go into these conversations with Whitberg, and he wants to just go directly into space, and I'm like, but no, I gotta like Ibis. I knew none of this stuff about Ibis until I started speaking with Christy Campbell about it, and and then Steve, and then other people, and pictures, and like slideshow videos like she did of me, and those places are very familiar, like the pools, the tanks, the regen tanks, all that stuff, the chairs, it all came to me. Like, finally, it's starting to make sense. So 2014, we're talking. I mean, 2014, I was walking around with my head like basically cut off, like not knowing, wanting to know, just going off of what other people said. But like this conversation now is like, it's almost like I feel like we are in a physical we were in an element and we were having a conversation right now.
Yeah, I think that the jam has been cracked.
The energy.
The question is are we able? I think it's so important. The most important thing that I think right now is that those of us that are trying our best to be like keeping ourselves in a positive position, that we really value and recognize the importance of that, so that not everyone is going to accept that.
No.
Some people are going to go in the negative path, and they're likely going to go in a whole other loop. But that's their choice, and we don't have to. We can try our best to help them, but that's also respecting their free will. But I like to think that
it's like never leave a wounded soldier behind.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes we can use these quarantine healing realms. And I'm speaking Sean Bond language,
Okay.
because Sean Bond taught me psionics. He taught me how to do soul traps. He taught me how to shield myself. He taught me a lot of stuff that has helped me in my day-to-day life. Like, when you're feeling sad, transmute that sadness into happiness. Like if the ending of a story, you don't like it, you can actually change that. You can recap it and make it a positive, not a negative.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
psionics are very cool. They're very cool because it's a part of our brain that a lot of people, normies, like normal people, if they just tapped into it, they might freak out. They might freak out because it can overwhelm you. The energy can get very, very strong through meditation. That's why a lot of people have been telling me, light meditation, but I like deep. I like deep because when I go deep, I really get to the core and the feelings. And then when I get to the feelings, I notice the memories start to seep through. And then when the memories seep through, it's like, oh God, I message a friend like Steve. Like I got to give it to Steve because Steve has been one of the ones that actually has opened a lot of doors as well. And ironically, when I was on Rob's show, the Typical Skeptic podcast, I met Christy there on that show. And then I ended up meeting Steve. And then I ended up meeting another Joseph who remembers me. You can go to my Facebook page and you'll see it. He's one of those ones that doesn't really, he's nervous to fully be public. You understand? Like, I think a lot of it has to do with handlers is what I'm picking up on. And, these handlers desist or die. Desist or die. 4 times we say that continuously. Those words, if you meditate on those words, they're very, very powerful. And a handler will run for the hills when they hear those words. Because think about those words and you meditate on those words, it can cause a lot of damage for them. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Well, I'm glad we communicated. Like, I'm happy to talk to you in the future. Sometimes I feel like short for time, but if I can ever help you with anything, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, man, don't go hard on yourself, man. Just, it was good. We had a conversation. We woke up, had a conversation, and I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, me too. All right, brother, man. God bless you. Talk to you again a bit.
You as well. Salute.
Thank you. Salute. Bye.
Whew. Wow. It's very intense when you start to find these things. These people start connecting with you, communicating with you, and there's connection. Like it blows my mind. I noticed the dragon energy is very strong. It pushes out I think it helps a lot. I really do. I think it's one of the strongest, in my own opinion. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. I will be back maybe tonight. I don't know, but might be on someone else's show. Oh, we will just wait and see. Much love. Love you all. Have a pleasant rest of your day. And remember, the universe always has something in store for you.